Uh, I'm gonna just have a discussion about books. Man, books. The more, the merrier. Books are just awesome. Not all books are great, but most of the time it doesn't even matter. It's almost never a waste of time to read a book. Some of the books, the text that I've read, you know, off Jump Street, I've read the Bible almost cover to cover, pretty much. I'm almost totally cover to cover, all the way nice with that there. You know, so there's a that's a accomplishment within itself. I read this book called History of Ojibwe People, and that's it said if there was a Chippewa Bible, that would be it, right? Because it's just a story of our ancestry as far back as the the verbal history goes. So that's a great book. That's just basically like a war chronicle. It's equivalent to the Art of War, but the North American Indian tribal warfare element. It's just awesome. It's a great. It was worth every second. It's almost like in the Bible, the Old Testament, where like Josh was going through, or David, or even like Samson. These stories were so exciting and just full of action and descriptive terms, like people taking, like this guy takes the Egyptian spear from him and then kills him with his own spear. I mean, that's a real poetic justice type war chronicle. So I mean, I like these types of texts. Okay, big time. I'm a great fan of Musashi and his Book of Five Rings. Man, I can't get enough of that book. Uh, it's just it describes everything, and it breaks it down in different terms about how it simplifies things, and it takes simple things and expounds upon them in a big way. It scales things up and scales things down and applies things to things and explains how life itself is a teacher of everything, and everything can teach everything in a different way. It's pretty interesting book. And another book I read, King Solomon's Mines. I mean, this book is full of African voodoo witch doctor adventure, uh, near death, accidental coincidence, and it talked about these Zulu warriors, how they try. It sounded a lot like the Indian Warrior Chronicles I read about, because the tribal warfare a lot. You get these long trails of people, single warfare, or single line people coming. You know what I mean? And the Zulu, all each of them had three throwing knives. I think they were called a Tongo, but I could be wrong. I can't remember exactly. But real interesting book. And it exposes you some ancient, or not, some historical African shit, even though it's based on some other, someone's imagination, I think. Uh, Tales from Arabian Nights. It's got Sinbad in it, and other thing it talks about genies, uh, adventures, and thieves and murderous cults and magical things. It's pretty it's an interesting book. I wonder how much of it is just fantasy or based on actual events and things people actually did. But yeah, I enjoyed that book a lot too. Then there's Hiawatha and its Original Legends by Longfellow, and I really like that book. It's got a lot of cool stories in it, and descriptions and stuff. I don't know, but someone said Longfellow just basically took a couple different stories and added them in and into that book, which I think maybe could be possible. Some of the Viking legends and even some maybe biblical things. I'm not sure though, requires further study, I mean, on my part. But I still really like the poeticness of that book, and to the characters and the situations and the location geographically. That I like that much about that book. I read Geronimo and his own story. That's another little mini war chronicle and little window into the North American Indian and our ways, and our diversities. Because people think all the Indians were just one, super nation, but it wasn't. It was just a bunch of sovereign tribes from each other, though they had, relations and exchange, but they were all sovereign from each other, and they knew this. And then there was distinct language barriers, genetic barriers, and origin barriers. People don't take this into consideration. This is something I've learned from my dabbling into history, which is, I think dabbling into history is never a waste of energy, because sometimes better know the present and the future by understanding the past. So never detach yourself from that, Then I audiobooked the Book of Jasher, and this is mentioned, referenced in the Bible, and it's a alternate account of Genesis, or in Exodus. It's almost like multiple books in one story. So I suggest everyone should check into that book at least once, and because it's got some shed some light on some things. And I've read The Art of War. I've read The Prince, Machiavelli, and I mean, that's all basically, if you want to know how politicians think, you just read The Prince, Machiavelli. That's how politicians and rulers conduct their mind, and how they plot and scheme, basically. And it's quite eye-opening to how conniving people actually can be. As is Art of War. I mean, that's all about plotting and planning. And even Musashi himself, it's a lot about strategy. And then I've read Bruce Lee book. This is actually what got me into the martial art kung fu thing. Is there was a book his wife wrote about him. I don't remember what the name of the book was, but something about Bruce Lee. But that just got me entertained to this effortless awareness, and I knew not that I knew. When you rediscover, some things that you forgot you already knew about through, training in the martial arts. In martial arts, I mean fighting. Kung Fu is a term that it just means skilled practice. Everyone that's a professional practices Kung Fu, but not everyone practices martial arts. So I practice both. They're one and the same, but that's just my personal situation. But yeah, these are some of the, like Yi Ching. I read that. That's like a Chinese, the Book of Changes. I read Lao Tzu, or the Tao Te Ching, or Shang Tzu. I've read that over Google. These books, man, they're interesting. They got the philosophies are they got some stuff to them that makes a lot of sense, but I see a lot of contrast in things between knowing a large group of different subjects and how they operate. It's good. It's like the I Ching says, you gotta don't miss the forest being so observative of the tree, or don't be so busy looking at the forest that you don't go see the individual trees, and then know the difference between the both and all the trees in the forest. That's basically when you set out on the knowledge quest, history quest, truth quest. That's what you really got to do. I mean, it's a work. It's like a scholarly work, but you're doing it by your own means and whatever is available to you. Anyway, yeah. get back.